and I'm so excited. Every time I walk into this garden this year, it's absolutely magical. Look at this onion. Look at that. It's about the size, well, not quite as big as my fist, I guess, but it's pretty big. I've already harvested several of them. The kale, amazing. Prices in the grocery store continue to rise. It's so satisfying to me to know that we are raising and growing our own food. Here's my broccoli. So when the broccoli sprouts in the center, which was down here, way down here, there it was, then you break it off, and then it will form flowers at all these other branches. So these are about ready to harvest and take in. Next year I think I'm going to grow more broccoli. So this is one that I just pinched off recently, and it's not putting out any new florets yet, but it will get there. These are some black-eyed peas that I planted on Chris's request, which is kind of weird actually because he can't eat beans. It's one of his biggest gout triggers, but he wanted them, so I'm growing a few, not very many though. I think I'm also going to come in behind here and plant some carrots, maybe beets, radishes. Everywhere I'm taking stuff out, I'm trying to put more stuff in. So I'm also going to be planting where I'm harvesting onions. One of the things that I'm really working towards this year is a continuous harvest. So succession planting one thing after the other. I tried to plan it out. I haven't been super great at it, but I am at least putting things in the ground where other stuff comes up. So next year, hopefully I can get it going, because otherwise, you end up with like a gajillion tomatoes all ripe at once and 20,000 zucchinis and all that, and then you have to process them or whatever. But if you can space out your plantings, then hopefully you space out your harvest a little bit too. Look at how the weeds just take over these beds. It's crazy. That's how this whole bed looked. So that was this morning's job, was weeding that bed. And that's why I've got cardboard boxes and feed bags in all the walkways. But look at the grass. Look at this kale bed. I mean, the grass and the clover is as high as the kale is. It's nuts, right? I have 3 different types of weed fabric. You can see them all right here. Say hello to Norm the gnome. Hello, Norm. How are you? That was the first weed fabric I got. I got it at Sam's Club. Loved it. Later, I went back to look for it online. They didn't have any in stock when I went back, so I don't even know what brand it is or anything. I didn't really pay attention. Later, I bought this stuff at Walmart, and then I bought this at my local store. This is woven, and it's kind of plasticky feeling, so I don't really like it, but it works. This is just, it might as well not be there, because the grass is growing underneath it. The only thing that it's good for, I guess, is the grass. It's like holding the grass down. So I'm guessing that it's made like to put under mulch or something. I typically come out and work on the farm every morning from about 7:30 to 9:30, 8 to 10, depending on weather, depending whether I have to be anywhere off farm that day. And I have to pace myself a little bit. So today I'd been working on weeding for a little while, and my back really started hurting from kneeling and bent over pulling weeds. And so I looked at my phone. I'd only been doing it about 15 minutes. So I got up to go get myself a glass of water, and I was kind of discouraged because I thought, I can only weed for 15 minutes. That's not very long. That's not very much at all. And my back was really hurting. So I took a water break. But then I thought, you know what? I just jumped up to walk over here and get this bottle of water. And that's amazing, because a few weeks ago when I started working in the garden, I couldn't even get up from a kneeling position. I had to put one foot up and then spread my other toe back a ways and then use an arm and like make a triangle and then get up about halfway and then put my arm on my knee and push myself up like that. And I just jumped up from the ground this morning. So that's super exciting that I'm making that kind of progress. And I imagine the more I'm out here working and weeding, the easier it will be. So I want to encourage you to keep going at whatever it is you're trying, whether it's gardening or exercise or a new hobby of some kind, you can do it little by little. Hello, Rocket Cat. Good morning. Hi. So let's look at these. Look at how everything is just going crazy here in the garden. The pumpkins are spreading out. Oh, did I show you the pumpkin? This is exciting. We've got another one too, but there's a little bitty pumpkin right now. This is a big max pumpkin, so these should get pretty big. You can see my first butternut squash is growing right there. And there's several more on this vine, or these vines. There's several plants right here. There's one, and here's another one right in there somewhere. Yep, there you can see it. Oh, that's a better angle. And the bell peppers are just down here. So they're growing. This one's got plenty of flowers on it to make peppers, but I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna do right here. I think this might have been a mistake planting bell peppers right next to squash, because I think the squash are pretty much going to shade them out. So I keep trimming them back and trimming them back, trying to give these bell peppers a little bit of access to light. So I think next year I'm going to plant my butternut squash on one of these arches, because they're just growing up, up, up. So this arch was not in place when I planted those, or I would have probably planted them here. They would be covering it. Oh, and look. I got solar lights to hang in here. They come on at dusk, and it took me a while to find some that were solar that were affordable. So I'm super excited about this seating area that I have going on here, and I can't wait till the viney stuff gets up a little bit more. This is a spaghetti squash. You can see one right there getting started. So they're green when they start out, I guess. This is the first watermelon, and look how big it's getting. So I'm trying slings just to make sure that it doesn't get too heavy for the weight of the vine. And then there's some other, where did I see? Oh yeah, here's another little bitty one right here. So once they get a little bit bigger, I'll sling it up also. The cantaloupe take a little bit more persuasion to get them to stay on the trellis. Everywhere there's a T-post, I've got pole beans going. But the best one is over here. Look at it. It's all the way up to the top and over the top. Oh, no, 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 no. The Japanese beetles are just eating up my pole beans. Ugh. All right, I'm going to get some water to knock them into. I set up traps last night, but they're not going to the trap. I just knocked them into the watering can to drown them. Yuck. I don't like Japanese beetles at all. When I planted the zucchini and squash, I really thought they were plenty far apart, and I put them in tomato cages to kind of help them grow up. I didn't have any stakes. I had tomato cages. I don't think tomato cages were the right way to go. I think next year I'll stake them. I see some squash bug eggs. So I kind of go around, I pull up all the squash leaves that I can while I'm walking around, and then I take this and I go put it in the compost tea, because otherwise it turns into a million tiny little squash bugs. So I'm just gonna break it off right here, like this. And this whole leaf, oh look, there's two sets, one there and one there. This whole thing is gonna go in the compost tea. So I want it separate from the other leaves that I, like these, that I just kind of trimmed off, because these will go in the compost pile. I do not want squash bugs in the compost pile. Oh, look, that leaf has them too. All right. Let's see if we have any more back here. These are my lemon squash. And I've never grown lemon squash before. Somebody was online, who was it? I don't remember, was showing me a picture of their lemon squash that was over 6 feet tall, and mine are what? Like, they're just still itty bitty. They're like 2 feet tall. All right, so look in here. Millions of yellow squash on this plant. I mean, look at that. They're just going nuts. Oh, there's one ready to harvest. But they're also pretty hard to reach and get to because of this. There's some zucchinis that'll be ready pretty soon. But they're so dense. Look how dense it is in there. And I thought I planted them plenty far apart. But to get to the ones back there, I mean, I really have to crawl through all sorts of stuff to harvest them. I really need a lot more room for zucchini and yellow squash than you would think. So what I've kind of been doing is on this aisle. I prune the ones that stick out into the aisle, and the ones that are touching the ground is what I try to do so that I can just lift up the top ones to get to the top leaves to get to the fruit, because it's insane. It's like, I mean, look how pretty that is though. Look at that, it's so pretty. But it's not really accessible to harvest. They looked so far from this other trellis when I planted them. There's a good probably 3 feet, 4 feet between them, but yeah, just not enough. Here is a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. So these are going to be just normal, like a carving pumpkin. I don't know whether we have any actually growing or not yet. I don't see any. Tomatoes, we do have some tomatoes growing now. Look, oh my gosh, it's like they grow overnight. Look at those. So exciting. So exciting. Thank you for hanging out with me in the garden today. Thank you for following me on my journey as I transition from city girl to farmer. I really appreciate all the time that you have invested with me over the last few years. I feel like there's a bug eating me right here. Speaking of moving, let's take a little bit of movement around the garden. Cheesiest segue ever.